Hello again and welcome to our first video. In this video we're going to walk through the evaluation setup of the IPControl Executive on a Sapphire Virtual 10 appliance. I am not going to show the uploading of the file to the virtual ESX host, but assume you have that process in place. There is a file that is included with the Sapphire appliance that has an OVA and a VMDK, which is registered, and when you do register that appliance it gets pre-configured with the number of CPUs and memory and network interfaces for that platform. We do have three different platforms, an X or V5, which is the smaller unit with 4 gig and 4 CPU, a V10, which is the middle tier, which can run the executive in the minimum class that can run the executive in CAA or any type of management appliance. And then we have a 20, which is a high-end system that will have 16 CPUs and 16 gig of RAM and 4 network interfaces. One note is to leave the network interfaces configured as is. There's a temptation to disable these here. However, they are mapped differently into the appliance and the operating system, and you can enable or disable the interface there. So I will suggest that you leave those as is. Now, the first boot of this appliance, and I'm going to go ahead and just start this up here so we can begin. When you first build the system, you'll be shown a configuration screen where you're going to need to have your IP address of this system, the fully qualified host name. You should have an active and working DNS IP address or two, and also a active and working NTP server, not the the supervisor or hypervisor that you're connecting to. So maybe a real NTP for that purpose. The very first menu, it's very important to select the right type of appliance. Otherwise, you may have to break this down and reinstall. So number one will give us a menu of the type, and we're going to select executive. So I can use the up-down arrow key spacebar to select, enter to OK. And that will bring up the next menu that is specific for the executive platform. Each system will have a different version or different listing of menu options that are applicable to that configuration. In this case here, I'm going to use some Sapphire names that we did in the video. So verse 16, we'll do exec. This is eval, exec. And our domain is eval.-dom.com. My IP address will be 10.10.0.2. The mask length is 24, which is already selected. You can leave that. 10.10.0.1 is the gateway. And I'm going to use 192.168.1.41 as the DNS service, and hopefully that'll work. And 10.1.1.1 for my NTP. Now, in terms of the time zones, you can either do class time zone where you can select it, or you can pick and choose how you want to do like UTC 0 or something along those regards. Okay, and the last part of that is the system date and time. If it's skewed too great, go ahead and set that information now and get it as close as you can to the proper time, but otherwise you can leave this be. And the user app admin is the appliance administrator. It is the same username password by default. I recommend leaving it initially until you get to the point that you're ready to start planning a migration to production, at which point you would lock it down and or when you have others accessing the system. At this point, double check your settings. Make sure you have executive selected. The version is 16.032, and we're going to go ahead and continue. Now, this process, as it says, can take a while because it does build the database, and it's going to install all of the default schema, do everything that's necessary on the appliance to configure the OS, the IP, all of its settings, and then it will reboot for us as we start moving through this configuration. Now, I'm going to pause this a little bit, and again, I will have full videos of all of these configurations that you can see firsthand. And so at the point that when this returns, I should have at least a login, or I'll return when the reboot is appropriately there. But you can expect that this can take between 5 to 10 minutes appropriately to install. We'll be right back, and we'll get a little bit closer to this. And then as it gets into the application for the supplemental media, the Sapphire image includes all of the installation media for the CAA, the executive, and the agent, as it has here. The executive monitoring system, which we're not going to go through in this video series, would have a separate install or separate set of software that we would mount beforehand, just for reference as you see this now installing the application for supplemental media. And as you get closer to the setup completing, you'll see it installing the MySQL, starting MySQL, and then it'll start building the database, which we will use in the back end of the system for storage. And then once it started the services, it's going to actually start all of the services, install that database, make sure everything's running, and then it should go through the procedure to reboot, and we should be starting on that system and process here shortly. Okay, and now that we're done with the installation, our executive is going to reboot, restart all the services, and the very first time that the application runs, you can expect about a 45-second delay with the initial loading of the web interface. Don't worry, the system is likely loaded. The initial unpacking of the web application and getting that all cached in memory is effectively what that difference is going to be. So now, let's go ahead and just jump right to the web interface, and that is going to be HTTPS, your IP address of the service, which I have typed in the wrong, which is 10.10.0.2, and the Tomcat application runs on port 8443. All other ports and services are 443, but this is 8443. And once you run and select and the application is built, we should be presented with a login page. And the very first time we log into the application, it's going to prompt us for a license key. And you should have a license key already from the sales group or team or from the engineer. And of course, feel free to reach out and get that information if not. We're going to wait for this to load. I do have a key ready, and then the login initially is going to be INC admin, and the same for the password initially, INC admin. We'll give this one more minute. Okay, and that very first time we'll send the message it's not secure. Just go ahead and proceed, as it is using a self-signed certificate. And here is where we'll enter our initial login and are prompted for our license key. So go ahead and paste that license key into the screen, and when you click submit, you should return to your login prompt, where you can now begin your login again. And the very first login should then take us to the default page where we'll see IPControl, and you can now verify that your application is installed. So we're going to stop this video here. We're going to proceed with the agent and the CAA after those, and then we'll go through the various walkthrough and configuration of the management itself. And we'll have a separate video for the walkthrough of the Sapphire appliance, its configuration menus and items as we get done with the various installations. So thanks again. Come back and join us in the next video, and we'll see you there. Thank you.